In November 2021, federal agents entered a quiet home in Gainesville, Georgia. They moved past the living areas and into a bathroom closet, where they found an old popcorn tin tucked away on a shelf. Inside, hidden under a jumble of blankets, sat a tiny single-board computer and a handful of circuit boards. These devices held the digital keys to over 50,000 Bitcoin, a haul worth roughly $3.3 billion. These coins were the missing pieces of a decade-old mystery. They were the exact sums siphoned out of Silk Road, the internet's most notorious illegal marketplace, back in 2012. The theft was so clean that even the site's founder had no idea who had taken the money. For 10 years, law enforcement assumed this was the work of a sophisticated international cartel. They were actually looking for a single phantom, a thief who had managed to stay completely invisible while holding one of the largest private fortunes on Earth. The trail led not to a foreign safehouse, but to Athens, Georgia. It's a college town better known for football than for high-stakes digital espionage. This was the home of James Zong. In 2012, Jimmy was a 22-year-old student and self-taught coder. His friends knew him as a polite, soft-spoken tech geek who kept to himself. He didn't fit the image of a digital kingpin. While he held a secret multi-billion-dollar stash, there were no flashy mansions or exotic car collections to draw attention. He simply went about his life as an ordinary student. It raises the question of how a 22-year-old could outsmart a dark web empire, the FBI, and the public records of the blockchain for an entire decade without leaving a single footprint. By late 2012, Silk Road was thriving. It relied on Bitcoin as a supposedly untraceable currency to facilitate millions of dollars in illegal trades. Jimmy registered 9 separate accounts on the site using false names and the bare minimum amount of information. He bypassed the drug listings entirely, using these accounts as placeholders for a specific financial maneuver. His plan relied on a timing error. First, he deposited 500 Bitcoin into a burner account. Then, he triggered 5 simultaneous withdrawal requests. The confused system processed every request as valid, multiplying his balance until he siphoned 50,000 Bitcoin. The theft stayed hidden because it wasn't a standard hack. He didn't use malware or crock passwords. He just exploited a logic flaw that was buried under thousands of daily drug transactions. After the heist, Jimmy went silent. He watched from the sidelines in 2013 as the FBI raided Silk Road and arrested its founder, keeping his stash untouched while investigators searched for the missing coins. To hide the money, he split the 50,000 Bitcoin into 2 massive wallets and moved the funds through cryptocurrency mixers. These services shuffle coins with thousands of others to erase any link between the original heist and the new addresses. In 2017, his patience was rewarded when the Bitcoin network underwent a hard fork, splitting into 2 separate currencies. Jimmy automatically received an equal amount of the new Bitcoin Cash, which he sold to add another 500 Bitcoin to his total hoard. As the value of his coins reached into the hundreds of millions, he began moving some of the wealth into physical assets. He invested nearly $10 million into Memphis real estate and stashed away bars of physical gold and silver. For 10 years, he lived as an unassuming student and investor, ignoring the temptation to spend his billions in any way that would flag the authorities. In 2019, Jimmy initiated a transfer to a popular cryptocurrency exchange. The amount was roughly $200. During this transfer, his wallet combined inputs from 2 sources, his stash of stolen Silk Road loot and a verified account tied to his real identity. Chainalysis algorithms immediately flagged the connection. By merging those streams, Jimmy signed his name to the 2012 heist. The FBI tracked the login data from that exchange account. The IP address pointed directly to a home in Gainesville, Georgia. A 10-year disappearance act was destroyed by a single transaction worth less than a new pair of headphones. In November 2021, agents finally moved in. They spent hours searching the house, looking for tiny digital evidence that held a multi-billion-dollar fortune. When they opened the popcorn tin in the bathroom closet, they officially recovered over $3.3 billion. It was the second largest cryptocurrency seizure in the history of the Department of Justice. Jimmy surrendered immediately. He handed over his devices and voluntarily gave the FBI another 1,000 Bitcoin he had stored elsewhere, cooperating fully as the evidence against him mounted. The 10-year Invisibility Act had finally collided with the permanent ledger of the blockchain. With his hardware seized and his confession signed, the trail that began in 2012 had reached its end. At his sentencing, Jimmy was facing up to 20 years in federal prison for wire fraud connected to a darknet market. Instead, the judge sentenced him to just 366 days, 1 year and 1 day in prison. The judge noted that Jimmy had no prior criminal record and had cooperated completely. Furthermore, his victims were the operators of an illegal drug cartel who were in no position to report the theft. He surrendered a $3.3 billion fortune, but after spending a decade looking over his shoulder, he traded that anxiety for exactly 366 days in a federal cell.